You're probably reading this thinking you have a good understanding of how your brain works, but what if I told you there's a fundamental flaw in your perception that you're completely unaware of, a flaw that has been hiding in plain sight your entire life? Your brain has a blind spot, and it's not just a figure of speech, it's a literal gap in your field of vision that you can't see, and it's been there your whole life, a constant reminder of the limitations of your own perception. This blind spot is a result of the way your retina is structured, with the optic nerve creating a small gap in your visual field, a gap that your brain has learned to compensate for by filling in the missing information, often without you even realizing it. But this compensation comes at a cost, as it can lead to a false sense of security, a sense that you're seeing the world as it truly is, when in reality, you're only seeing a part of it. The concept of a blind spot is well known in the context of vision, where it refers to the area in the visual field that corresponds to the location of the optic nerve in the retina, but it also has a broader implication on how our brain processes information. Think about that for a second. The very organ that is supposed to help you navigate the world has a built-in limitation that you're not even aware of, a limitation that can affect everything from your perception of reality to your ability to make informed decisions. This limitation is not just limited to your vision, but also extends to your cognitive abilities, with your brain often relying on mental shortcuts and assumptions to fill in the gaps in your knowledge. For example, when you're driving, your brain is constantly using mental shortcuts to anticipate the actions of other drivers, but these shortcuts can sometimes lead to mistakes, as they're based on incomplete information. This is why it's so important to be aware of your own limitations, to recognize the potential for errors and to take steps to mitigate them. You're watching Mind Unlocked, where we decode the hidden patterns of the human mind and explore the complexities of human perception. The idea that our brain has a blind spot for unknown unknowns is particularly interesting, as it suggests that we're not just limited by what we can see, but also by what we can't even imagine. This concept was first introduced by Donald Rumsfeld, the former U.S. Secretary of Defense, who used it to describe the limitations of intelligence gathering, but it has since been applied to a wide range of fields, from psychology to philosophy. And here is the part that hits close to home: this blind spot is not just limited to our vision, it's a fundamental aspect of how our brain processes information, and it affects every decision we make. You have probably made decisions based on incomplete information without even realizing it, and that's because your brain is wired to fill in the gaps, even when it doesn't have all the facts. This can lead to a phenomenon known as confirmation bias, where your brain selectively seeks out information that confirms your existing beliefs, while ignoring information that contradicts them. Imagine being so convinced that you're making the right choice, only to find out later that you were missing a crucial piece of information, and that's exactly what happens when our brain's blind spot gets in the way. You have probably done this before, you just didn't realize it, and that's what makes it so insidious. This blind spot can affect even the most mundane decisions, from what to eat for breakfast to what to wear, but it can also have more serious consequences, such as in business or finance. For example, a company may make a decision to invest in a new product based on incomplete market research, only to find out later that the product is not as popular as they thought. Or, an individual may make a decision to invest in a particular stock without fully understanding the risks involved, only to lose money when the stock crashes. These types of mistakes can be costly, both financially and emotionally, and they're often caused by a lack of awareness of our own limitations. The next finding is even more disturbing. Research suggests that our brain's tendency to overlook unknown unknowns can have serious consequences, from making poor investment decisions to ignoring critical warning signs in our personal relationships. And the research goes even further, suggesting that this blind spot is not just a minor flaw, but a fundamental aspect of how our brain is wired. This means that it's not just a matter of being more careful or more informed, but rather it requires a fundamental shift in how we think and make decisions. For example, instead of relying on mental shortcuts and assumptions, we need to be more willing to consider alternative perspectives and to seek out diverse sources of information. We also need to be more aware of our own biases and limitations, and to take steps to mitigate them. This can involve seeking out feedback from others, being more open to criticism and dissenting opinions, and being more willing to admit when we're wrong. Here is the part that gets personal. Think about the last time you made a decision that didn't work out as planned, and ask yourself, was it because you were missing some critical piece of information,
Or was it because your brain's blind spot got in the way?
You need to start questioning your own perceptions and be more aware of the limitations of your own brain. This requires a certain level of humility and self-awareness, as well as a willingness to learn and adapt. It's not always easy to admit when we're wrong, but it's a crucial part of personal growth and development. By recognizing our own limitations and biases, we can start to make more informed decisions and to avoid the pitfalls of our brain's blind spot. For example, we can start to seek out diverse sources of information, to consider alternative perspectives, and to be more open to feedback and criticism. We can also start to develop a growth mindset, being more willing to learn and adapt, and to see challenges as opportunities for growth and development. So, what can you do to overcome this blind spot? The answer is not to try to see more, but to be more aware of what you can't see, and that requires a fundamental shift in how you think. It requires you to be more humble, more open-minded, and more willing to consider alternative perspectives.
This can involve seeking out new experiences and challenges, being more willing to take risks and to step outside your comfort zone.
It can also involve developing a greater sense of self-awareness, being more aware of your own strengths and weaknesses, and being more willing to admit when you're wrong. By doing so, you can start to make more informed decisions, and to avoid the pitfalls of your brain's blind spot. For example, you can start to use decision-making frameworks and tools, such as pros and cons lists, or decision trees, to help you make more informed decisions. You can also start to seek out diverse sources of information, and to consider alternative perspectives, to help you avoid the limitations of your own biases and assumptions.
So next time you're making a decision, remember that your brain has a blind spot, and it's up to you to fill in the gaps, not with assumptions, but with a willingness to learn, to adapt, and to consider the unknown.
This requires a certain level of mindfulness and self-awareness, as well as a willingness to be more open-minded and humble. It's not always easy, but it's a crucial part of making informed decisions and avoiding the pitfalls of your brain's blind spot. By being more aware of your own limitations, and by taking steps to mitigate them, you can start to make more informed decisions and to achieve your goals. Subscribe to Mind Unlocked for more insights into how your mind really works, and to learn more about the complexities of human perception and decision-making.
By exploring the hidden patterns of the human mind, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and of the world around us, and we can start to make more informed decisions and to live more fulfilling lives.